Welcome to our final lesson, exploring the character of Lady Macbeth. We will take a look at the last of Lady Macbeth's characteristics, her guilt. We will begin with an examination of Lady Macbeth as a remorseless figure who lacks guilt during the aftermath of King Duncan's murder. Next, we will delve deeper into how she attempts to suppress her creeping guilt, even going as far as to ridicule Macbeth for feeling guilty. Lastly, we'll explore the dire consequences of this repression, with Lady Macbeth being overwhelmed by guilt, causing her public outbursts, terrifying hallucinations, and ultimately leading to her tragic suicide. And so our journey through the dark corridors of guilt and its psychological impact begins. Lady Macbeth's guilt is initially non-existent in the aftermath of King Duncan's murder and is shown clearly through her actions and language. For instance, when Macbeth frets after murdering Duncan, Lady Macbeth retorts,
"Infirm of purpose. Give me the daggers. The sleeping and the dead are but as pictures."
However, it's important to note that Lady Macbeth needed alcohol to numb herself before the murder, but instead it made her more sensitive. She even says she could have killed Duncan herself if he hadn't looked like her father. This shows how complicated Shakespeare's portrayal of Lady Macbeth is. In this scene, Macbeth is panicking and she dismisses his concerns as if they are nothing. She even dares to touch the murder weapon, a clear indication of her initial immunity to guilt and remorse. Furthermore, Lady Macbeth's cold-hearted analogy of the sleeping and the dead being as mere as pictures indicates her detachment from the horrific actions they have just undertaken. She reduces the humanity of their victims, viewing them as little more than trivial images, thus highlighting her lack of empathy and remorse early on. This initial lack of guilt is significant as it starkly contrasts her later mental decline and intensifying guilt, showing a clear progression of her character throughout the play. Moving on, we see that Lady Macbeth represses her guilt, brushing it off as if it's nothing, highlighting her attempt at trying to ignore it. She states,
"What's done is done."
Her seemingly nonchalant dismissal of crime displays her efforts to stifle her guilt, but also reveals how she uses acceptance as a coping strategy. She seems determined to convince herself and Macbeth that thinking about past misdeeds is pointless. But don't be tricked into thinking that Lady Macbeth is totally guilt-free. We must note that Shakespeare has her repeat this phrase multiple times throughout the course of the play, showing us her constant battle to remain at peace with her conscience. In disregarding the severity of their crimes, Lady Macbeth is exhibiting a powerful need to keep her guilt in check and retain an appearance of control, as she is deeply fearful of the potential havoc her guilty conscience could wreak on her mind and life. Having spent most of the time repressing and ignoring her guilt, it overwhelms her, causing outbursts and hallucinations leading to her committing suicide. She says,
"Here's the smell of blood still. All the perfumes of Arabia will not sweeten this little hand."
This phrase is important as it invokes a powerful image of how deeply Lady Macbeth is haunted by her past actions. The lingering smell of blood serves as a constant reminder of the terrible acts she has committed, pulling her deeper into her guilt. The reference to the perfumes of Arabia being unable to cleanse her guilt suggests a sense of hopelessness and despair, highlighting that she feels trapped by her action. It illustrates the extent of her torment, a manifestation of a guilty conscience, relentless and ever-present, ultimately leading to her downfall. Hence, Lady Macbeth's guilt evolves from absent to overwhelming, demonstrating the moral consequences of her actions which lead to her committing suicide. And that brings us to the end of today's lesson. We've followed the progression of Lady Macbeth's guilt. 3 vivid examples guided us: her initial fearless handling of the murder weapon post Duncan's assassination, her repeated dismissive phrase, "What's done is done," as she suppresses her guilt, and finally, her helpless outburst about the enduring smell of guilt-ridden blood. See you in our next class! Watch the rest of the GCSE English Literature course at Sophos Education.